to another exciting episode of Tidbits from Rod. Today we're going to be looking at not the Porsche, not the Corvair or the Country Coach or the Newmark Coach, but a new purchase I just got, which is an XK8, a 2003 XK8, and 61,000 miles, but immaculate vehicle, no rust on this whatsoever. Got it from an old couple in California who'd moved to Boise, closer to me here in Idaho. So what we're going to be doing today, because this suffers from the typical suspension issues of most XK8s, the top suspension bushes have just collapsed and rotted away. The bottom shock absorber bushes have rotted and the bushes rotted away inside, so we're replacing those. The sway bar bushing and the sway bar drop links. So stay tuned. Here's the 2003. The front suspension has dropped very slightly. It should be about 400 millimeters from here to the center of the cap. This one's 370. But other than that, the car is pretty damn good. I'm happy with it. It's not the Porsche, totally different beast. But this video isn't about the performance. I missed having a convertible in this weather. It's 95 here today, 95 Fahrenheit here in Idaho, which is too hot, and I love having drop heads. So stay tuned and we're going to get this video underway. This is an XK8 2003 XK 4.2. And what we're going to be doing today is changing the front strut mounts, the shock absorber bushes, the upper A-arm and lower A-arm bushes. There's a few videos out there, but they seem to be making it rather awkward, taking lots more off than you need to do. It's really very simple. So stay tuned and we're going to see how I do this. It may help, may not. You may prefer other people's explanations, but this is mine. This actually is what I would say is a pristine car, apart from the 22 years, 23 years that it's been on the road and sitting. It's got 61,000 miles. It's a true California car, bought from an older couple that no longer use it, couldn't actually get into it. Nice couple. No paintwork, no accidents, full service history on this car, and I would say, as I say, it's immaculate, but it's got the typical Jaguar symptoms, whereas this top mount goes just totally collapsed. I've already taken one out, and I'll show you that one in a minute, but this, it should be from the center of the wheel hub to here, should be 400 mil. This one's 370. It was really sitting down. So here we go. Let's get the tools. Let's get the bits. First of all, what we're going to do is we're going to disconnect the anti-roll bar. Draw a blank. We're going to disconnect the anti-roll bar, top and bottom. We're then going to disconnect the top A-arm. Once you've got those two off, take the speed sensor off, just get it out of the way. You don't need to take anything else off, and this A-arm slides out the way. You take the three 13mm bolts off the top here, remove the caps, put them somewhere safe, and then that whole unit comes out, and it takes about 10 minutes. So stay tuned. Let's put this somewhere where you can actually see it. Can we get there? Can we see this? Hopefully. How's that? You see that? Okay. I will edit out all the garbage. First of all, two tie straps. Cut those tie straps. Speed sensor. Disconnect speed sensor. Be careful, these plastic clips get brittle and fragile when they age. Put that somewhere out the way that you're not going to knock it, break it, or do any other untoward damage to it. $19mm on the top anti-roll bar down link, drop link. With an 18mm on the inside to stop it turning. If you're anything like me and you put your hands on the bottom of the ratchet while you're doing that, it crushes your fingers between other bits and pieces. You're not the only one that does it. I do it as well. $15mm nut on the lower one and a 13mm head on the bottom. And then there's your drop link. Not bad. The bottom bush is a little bit perished. Can you see that in there? So I'll replace those while I've got this out. The top one is 224s. And they're not tight. I'm not sure if someone's had this off before. I don't think so. Inside either side between the A-arm and the frame, there's spacers, washers. Be careful, don't drop them out. Make sure you count how many are on each side. Again, I wasn't expecting to find packing washers in there. This one's got, by the looks of it, 3 on the front, probably 1 on the back. The other side had 3 on the back, 1 on the front. Okay, with this loosened off, before you take it out, you want to disconnect the bottom shock absorber bush. Just support the hub with your knees while don't let it drop down. Again, support the rotor with your knees, and you can pull this A-arm out. Okay, I've got just 3 washers on the front of this one. You see this? Just here. 3 packing washers. None on the back one. It was a bit... It's okay, nothing special. Drop it down gently and it'll just sit on that lower radius arm. These bushes just pry out. They're raised, going to be replaced. For the top strut mounting nuts, remove the plastic caps if you're fortunate enough to still have them on your vehicle. This one has all of them. That's a dust cover that just goes over that one. These are 13mm. Remove these. Now you've got the bottom shock disconnected and the air arm disconnected. Hold on to the strut with one hand if you can, support it. Otherwise it will just fall out. So loosen off these 3 nuts, 30mm nuts, take it off, and the strut will come out. With the 3 nuts under on the top, this thing just slides straight the way out. That has totally collapsed and disintegrated. And with the lower one, totally gone. And the car hadn't been driven hard, just deteriorated over the years. This isn't bad. It feels a lot looser than a brand new one, that's for sure, but there's no play in it. So I'm not sure what I do about those. I might change it while it's out, push it out, get a new one. But literally 10 minutes to get this out, so don't struggle. You don't need to take the wheel arch liners out, as some guys on the internet seem to suggest. Take the wheel arch liners out, disconnect the lower A-arm joint. You don't need to do all that. Just take this top A-arm bolt out, obviously the bottom shock absorber connection, and the 3 bolts at the top. This thing just falls out. What a mess on this bench, eh? So here's a new one, and there's the old one. See how it's totally collapsed? The bushing's disintegrated. I say it's riding 30mm low on the front, both fronts. The bottom bush. This is the bush from the passenger side. Not very good, as you can see. Bump stop, just totally deteriorated and rotted away over the years. But I'll show you how to get those out. It's pretty easy how to get this bottom one out. Don't struggle with it. Okay, on my messy bench, a little word of warning, a word of advice for you who are trying to do this for the first time. This is the unloaded length. This is a spring live energy, as we call it, that's got compression on it. Do not just undo that and think you can take this thing apart. When that hits the last thread, if you're going to do that, this thing is going to come out of there like a nuclear missile, and it'll take your fingers off, take whatever's in the way of it, it'll take it off, because this spring will unload that much, a lot of energy in there. So again, most of the people know this, but anybody doing this for the first time, please do not just undo this bolt, this nut, and let this top come off, because it will come off and take your fingers with it. So get yourself a set of spring compressors, and we will work on this one, getting this out. So bear with me. Because the coils are quite tight, with my compressor it's a bit tricky getting it in there. And believe it or not, you've still got to compress this down to get it out. And it's just a laborious task of compressing this spring. La-di-da-di-da-di-da. That is a 17 mil. And that's what it compressed, and it still has energy in it. So you can imagine how fast that shoots off there. Again, even when it's compressed and you're handling this, be careful, because if that slips, that will go flying. One thing I did notice, it has two plastic washers on this. I'm not sure if that's original from the factory. Someone just put two on there for the fun of it, or if it's ever been rebuilt before. I doubt it, because I've got all the service records and none of them suggest that this front end suspension was ever touched. So I don't know why there's two. I'll do a bit of research to find out if there should be two on there. No particular reason why it needs to be. Let's take this one out now, shall we? Socket of your choice that fits over there. That is smaller than the eyelet, but just big enough to sit on the bush. And we take ourselves a bearing pusher. For you guys in America, this is a Harbor Freight one. You guys in England, I'm not sure if you have Harbor Freight over there. I remember when I was there, they didn't have it. I've done some videos for this on the bench, and I found myself not actually videoing the part that was relevant. So this one is big enough to go over the whole thing, let the bush come through. There we go. That makes it a lot easier, doesn't it? I tend to want to do it by hand to get it started. You can feel it crack. No point putting an impact driver on it, it's jammed, it's just going to screw up your threads. And you don't want that. There's that bush. Totally expired. So anyway, this one, that's interesting. Didn't have an upper bump stop on this one, so that sort of says to me that it either has totally disintegrated or someone's been in here before. May it be that it's just totally disintegrated. This one is almost like powder, so I suspect that it may have just disintegrated, because I don't see any signs where this has been touched before. Shock absorbers are okay. We'll call those good. I'm not going to put new ones on just at the moment. Let's get the new parts and we'll get this thing put back together, so stay tuned. As I was having problems with those particular spring compressors, cheap and nasty, I decided to invest in a different type. These ones are far better, a lot safer, that's for sure. Got pins in here that keep this on the spring, so if it does slip it doesn't come flying off the spring. This particular set came from Amazon. DMT is a manufacturer. They actually work well, not very expensive, about 30 bucks I think, but nevertheless invest in a good set of spring compressors, because if you use cheap ones on this and they fly off, you're likely to hurt yourself. So here is my setup, putting the spring on using the spring compressors and alignment. So you'll see out there that many other people say you've got to pay very specific attention to ensuring the bottom mount is aligned with the top. Not so much the case. Get it roughly where you need it. When you put the top bolt on, you only do it up to 30 to 40 Newton meters torque, but you can't torque it up. And there's some out there say you grab the shaft with a pair of adjustable grips and torque it. I wouldn't recommend that. There is a particular part on the top that is used, is a notch. You can put a spanner on there and torque it, but here's what I suggest. Because you can still rotate this, it's not that fixed, you can still rotate it when it's in the vehicle and then torque it once it's in the vehicle, once you've got the bottom part in the bracket. So as I say, let's put this back here. You can turn this relatively easy, and if you want to get alignment, you can move these threads every which way you want. Just put a spanner on it and turn it. Get it roughly where you need to get it. And then you're in a position to take the clamps off. By the way, these particular spring compressors I bought online, it's got a spring loaded, or not spring loaded, it's a ball bearing when you push it in. But because of the diameter of the spring, and I'll show you that in a minute, I had to file and modify these clamps a little bit. But the bolt's down, it's not torqued, it has snugged down. I'm going to take the spring compressor off and then put this back in the vehicle. Okay, time to put this strut back in, but as you can see, I've got the way I took this out was to take the upper A-arm fulcrum bolt out, which when you take that out, it releases this and you have complete access to take this strut out. Bear in mind when you do this, you can put tension on the brake line, so be careful with that. And my torch goes flying. Let's do that. Get that somewhere. It puts a bit of light. So, replacing these bushes. Here's the bushes I bought. Euro parts. Seem okay, but who's to know what the quality of these things are? There's not many companies that I've found that supply these. That's interesting. Don't know if you can see this. It's all corroded in the side. So I'm going to have to clean that up. So bear with me. I didn't notice that before. Let's put my screwdriver back in. Hold it up out of the way. and go and clean it. So I'm just cleaning out the corrosion. Little piece of 100 grit. Can't get a file in there. The rotary wire brush won't go in there. So just clean it out as such. Gets rid of that corrosion that sits in there. What I'm going to do is just put a little bit of grease back in here. Fill up the cavities and the pores to keep the water from migrating in there. When I say, okay, what I've done is put a bit of general purpose bearing grease inside here. And we're going to, these just do press in, but they take a little bit of, there we go. Nope, not quite. There it is. Put the other one in. The rest of that will press in when you put the fulcrum bolt in. But there's the two top mounts replaced. Okay, ready to put the shock back in. And as you can see with that A-arm out of the way, that just feeds in there really nicely. If I can find the location holes. There we go. Get a couple of bolts started at the top. And there you can't see this. That holds it in place. And then, as I was mentioning before, this will turn quite easily if you haven't got it completely aligned. This bottom will turn. You can twist it, and it's expected to turn. You've got a little bit of flex because you've got rubber bushes in here. So we'll jack this up, put the bolt back in, or in this case I'm going to lift it up with my knees and put the bolt in. There we go, and that's in, ready to torque up, do up. I'll get this arm put back in loosely. I'll get the fulcrum bolt, bear with me. So here's the fulcrum pin, bolt, nut, the old bushes, and you may not be aware, but please make note, when you take this apart you will find washers, and these washers control the caster angle, and they were set, two thick ones, one thin one, and on the rear you will see there is just one thin. So these washers go here. This single washer goes on the rear. You can't see it because my shock absorber's in the way. But pay attention to that and make sure that when you take this out, if you're not aware those washers are there, they're shims actually, and they fall out, you need to know which way they go back. Two thick, one thin, left front, one thin, left rear. On the opposite side, it's the opposite to that. On the front, there's one thin, and on the rear, there's two thick and one thin. That is straight out of the Jaguar manual, by the way. So that's the way that the caster angle was set up on this. So if you ever do take these bushes out and replace them, be aware you've got these shims in here, and if they drop out when you pull the bolt out, you might think, where do they go? That's where they go. So I'll get this put back in now. Okay, here's my bolt. There's my washers, my shims for the front. And here's my washer and shim for the back. It's going to be a bit tight getting it in there. A little pry bar. Washer, thin washer, and this capped washer. Sorry if you can't see this, my hand might be in the way. A little bit of tender loving care and manipulation to get those aligned. Mr. Persuaser. That wasn't a lot of brute force, that was just gently tapping. Here's that cup washer again. Cupping goes to the bearing, the bushing. And we'll get that torqued up. So just for reference, there's a Jaguar manual for those shims and your caster shims on the fulcrum bolt. Okay, for reference. There's the left and right. Forward, fulcrum for the left side, fulcrum for the right side, and it shows you 1, 2, 3, 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4 down their positions for the shims. Okay, sharing some torque specs with you for your reference. I don't hear many other people talking about torques. So what I've done here is I jack the car up, take the weight on the lower ball joint, so either the weight's on the suspension, and then I've tightened up the fulcrum nut. I've also tightened up the shock absorber nut and the top 3 nuts according to the specs I just showed you. Always put the weight back on the vehicle before you tighten these bushes up. Otherwise, if you tighten them up when the weight's off it, when the weight goes on, it twists the bushes. So just another little tidbit. Change the sway bar bushes now. The easiest way to do that is to come in from the top. There you can see the sway bar bracket, 2 10mm nuts. One at the back, and the socket is on the one at the front. Long reach extension. Sorry, it keeps going out of focus. It's trying to focus on different things here. Get yourself a long reach extension, 3/8 or 1/4 inch drive. Undo those 2 10mm bolts. Take the plate out from the top, and then I'll show you how you can actually pull the rubber out from the top or pull the rubber out from the bottom. Do both sides simultaneously, because that allows the sway bar to move and lift up a little bit so you can put the rubbers back in. So here's the passenger side. you've got the two 10mm bolts, the bracket and the rubber bush. Take the two bolts out, lift the bracket up, and as I say, that allows a sway bar to move, and you can then slide the new bushes on, and I'll show you how to do that. By the way, when you want to take that out, best thing here, remove the air box, air cleaner box, because it gives you far more access to it. So stay tuned and we'll put the new bushes in. To make life just that little bit easier, you might want to consider taking the inner wheel lining out. You don't have to take the whole thing out, but to get to this bush and be able to slide it back in, it's easier if you just pull the two press pins out here and here, and there's a 10mm plastic nut that sits on there. You can just set the liner aside like such, and you can get access, better access to getting that bush in. So just a little heads up, you may be aware, you may not be aware, but what positions the sway bar is this little groove. Both rubbers have the center groove in there, but on the driver's side, left-hand drive car, there is a raised lip on the roll bar that sits inside that groove, and that's what locates the roll bar side to side. And then this bottom piece, let's stop it rolling into the engine compartment. This little two notches on the bottom here, they locate into the frame. So frame location, the groove inside locates on a raised groove around the sway bar, which locates the sway bar, anti-roll bar, whatever you want to call it, side to side in position in the car. Just a little tidbit, thought you might want to know. Okay, putting the new bush back in, slit goes to the back. A little bit of lubricant, rubber lubricant, very fine oil to get that slide in there, because it's really tight, trying to get it to seat. By the way, this little slot here is the slot in the casting where the rubber sits in. A little bit of there she goes. And it's in. Make sure that it's sitting in this groove. You can't really see it from the top on this side. And that positions that sway bar where it needs to go. And I found it's easier just to slide the plate, the retaining horseshoe plate, up in here, let it sit on top of the bush, make sure it's centered nicely. So you can put the two 10mm bolts back in from here. You can see the back one just there, and the front one is just under there. Using a nice long, in this case 3/8 extension, put a bit of double-sided tape or tape in the socket, stick the bolt in there, stop it dropping out, and you can get down there quite happily from here onto that nut. Can you see it down there? Okay, here's the bracket, sits on top of the bush. Center the bracket on the holes, center the bush, make sure the bush is nice and even on the bracket, and then start the nuts. I said this one's really easy from the top. The other one's a bit trickier, but you still get to the bolts from the top. Let's get a torque wrench and torque that up. Okay, here's my long extension, 10 mil, 30 foot-pounds. Snug them both down first. I always like to do that. There are high tensile bolts in there though, so 30 foot-pounds. Doesn't seem too bad. There's one. I suppose I could take one of these 10-inch, 12-inch extensions out of here, but hey. There we go. Snug down that one. I've already done the other one, so that's the bushings changed. You can see those down there quite happily. Okay. Let's put the drop link back on now. No drop link, easy. Put the top one in first. La-di-da-di-da-di-da, and then the bottom one. This is a 19, that's a 13, and the nut is a 15. So let's tighten those up. So the torque for this nut, 60 to 80 Newton meters, and the torque for the lower nut is 39 to 55 Newton meters. So let's get those torqued up. There's a 17 mil flat on the back of this that you can hold the joint so it doesn't keep swiveling. And I'm taking this one up to the equivalent, it's 51 foot-pounds. Why they put such a long thread on here, I do not know. Probably for an arm workout. The amount of times I've caught my fingers between the ratchet and a piece of metal. So, taking it easy now. Again, 51 foot-pounds. There we go, 51 foot-pounds. Pull the spanner out. Okay, the lower one is going to 33 foot-pounds, which is the equivalent of what I just told you in Newton meters. There we go. That's that one tightened up. Okay, so we're going to put the speed sensor wire back onto the upper A arm and connect it, so excuse my head, and put a couple of tie straps on. Just a little tidbit, I'm not sure if you ever realised, these tie straps are hygroscopic. They absorb moisture, and when they dry out they get very brittle. So if you've ever wondered when you put a tie strap on that you pull it up and it just snaps, well, that's the reason for it. Years ago when I was again working for a motor company in design, we were launching a product, and that particular product was the SW164, the Cougar, North American early Cougar, based off of the Mondeo Contour Mystique. And on the production line we're having problems where they're using tie straps in various components to hold them like this, and the production line were putting the tie straps on, pulling them up, snap, break, and that's because they were drying out in the heat. And so the solution to that was to put the tie straps, store them in a plastic bag with moisture in until it was time for them to use. So there's another little tidbit for you. There's a speed sensor in, new drop link onto the sway bar, tightened up bottom bolt, top bolt, shock absorber, lower bolt, and the fulcrum with new bushes.